Arachbed by username RoseBlack2. Does anyone know where I can get a new mattress for a low price? My new one has had complications, to say the least. Now, let me start at the very beginning. I used to have my old mattress for over 5 years, and it served me well until I found several springs popping out one morning, so I figured it was time to replace it. Mattress shopping was a complete nightmare. Why does it have to be so damn expensive? Anyway, last week I thought I finally found a replacement. I was driving back home from work when I had to stop at a red light. It happened to be the one next to my area's local thrift store. It occurred to me that I hadn't tried looking in there for one. At first I was hesitant considering COVID and all that. However, I reasoned I could just sanitize it. With that in mind, I pulled into the parking lot and I went inside. I found several mattresses near the front of the store. All of them were fortunately in my price range. Unfortunately, most, if not all, were uncomfortable as hell. I wouldn't be surprised if some of them were actually made from broken glass. I thought my time would turn out to be a complete waste of time. Then I came across the last fucking mattress in the store. Oh god, admittedly it was perfect. Now, let me be clear here, I didn't lay on any of them. I just used my hand to determine the firmness. And I can also tell you that at that moment, the mattress felt like it was specifically made for me. I was actually surprised nobody had brought it already, so I found an employee and told him I wanted to buy it. He made a confused look when he saw the mattress and said he didn't remember it being brought into the store. That was my first red flag. Oblivious to it, I purchased the mattress anyway. With the mattress now tied to the top of my car, the only thing I had to do was to buy some supplies to sanitize it with. After a quick search on the old Google, I found there were several methods of which can be used. I went with the one that involved baking soda, essential oil and vacuuming. Apparently all I had to do was combine some of the oil and baking soda, then rub this mixture into the mattress, waiting for about an hour for each side. I cleaned each side twice just to be safe. With that done, I was happy to have an albeit only new to me mattress to sleep on. There was just one problem, however. I had forgotten to wash my sheets. I cursed my forgetfulness, and after debating with myself for a bit, I decided that cleaning and drying the sheets would have taken too long. I put off washing them till the next day. After waking up from my sofa, I went into my bedroom to get my sheets and saw what I should have recognised as my second red flag. I was almost positive I had placed the bed dead centre against the back wall. When I saw it again, however, it looked like as if somehow it had been moved a couple of inches to the left. Once again, I had dismissed this as idiocy, thinking I had simply moved it and forgot I had. So, I picked up my sheets and took them to my laundry room. Once I put them inside the washer, I grabbed my bottle of detergent only to realise that it was completely empty. I muttered a curse to myself before throwing it away. Then I headed out to buy some laundry detergent. It ended up taking much longer than it should have. Of all the rotten luck, a storm of all things knocked over a tree, blocking the road. The alternative route happened to be closed due to some construction work, so I couldn't take that instead. It took round about 3 hours for the damned thing to be removed. By then I had all but run out of patience. Even after the tree was finally gone, I still had to deal with the bottleneck of traffic caused by its presence in the road. That took another hour to get through. When I made it back home, at last, the sun was already setting. The only silver lining I had was that I didn't have to sleep on the couch anymore. Or so I thought. I washed and dried the sheets, by the way. Then I took them into my room, where I saw that the bed was back at the centre of the wall. I nearly dropped the sheets when I saw this. I knew for sure I didn't move it, because I had no reason to go back into my bedroom before that time. I started to grow worried that someone had somehow gotten into my house. Luckily, a search throughout my house showed me that this wasn't the case. I thought that maybe it was just I was growing a little paranoid due to the stress of a long day. I was ready to put my head on my pillow and drift off to dreamland. All I had left to do was wash my sheets. With them fresh out of the dryer, I put them on my bed, then I took a shower, brushed my teeth and went to sleep. The moment I laid on the mattress, I felt all my worries and stress melt away. I have to admit that the word heavenly doesn't even come close to describing how good it felt to lay on this bed. I felt like a scoop of ice cream melting into a slice of pie fresh out of the oven. I fell asleep faster than I ever have in my life. It was by far the best night's sleep I've ever had, at least for roughly 2 hours. Then I got one of those scam calls in the middle of the night. Annoyed, I immediately rejected the call. Then I tried going back to sleep, only to realise that the bed was a few feet from the wall. That freaked me out right there. I had to double check that I wasn't seeing things. When I confirmed I wasn't, I tried getting out of my bed, only to feel something wrap around my legs. Despite the darkness, I could make out some, what I can only describe as tendrils, poking out of the bed. I screamed when I saw them and tried in vain to free myself. More tendrils shot up from the bed and wrapped around me, binding me to the bed. Then 8 thick, spider-like legs shot out from the sides of it. I desperately wanted what I was witnessing to be a nightmare, but it wasn't. It began running towards the door. I thought it intended to ram its way through it. Instead, I saw these giant pincers poke out from the front of my bed. They were so sharp they pierced right through my headboard and door. It chewed its way through my front door as well. I tried to scream, but its tendrils wrapped around my mouth. I figured that someone would surely notice this monster bed, of all things, scurrying across the street. Unfortunately, nobody seemed to be out at the time. Of course they weren't. Usually my neighbours would never shut the fuck up, but the one time I needed them to be outside, they were nowhere to be found. Sod's law, that. Just my luck. And it was about to get even worse. The bed was heading towards the woods. As far as I know, spiders only tend to do 2 things in the forest: eat and mate. Neither of those sounded even remotely appealing to me. However, the former sounded like the greater torture of the 2. I struggled the entire time it was taking me deep into the woods. It stopped in front of some gnarled looking trees and began tapping at the ground like this. Dead leaves crunched under its leg for a short while until I felt it sink a little. It then started raking leaves out the way, revealing a large hole in the ground. Needless to say, I didn't like where things were going. The inside of the tunnel was damp, almost suffocatingly so. The only source of light I had was coming from the bed itself. 2 red beams of light shot out in front of it. I assumed it was coming from its eyes. It gave the tunnel an almost hellish vibe. The end of the tunnel led us to a large cave, where a sudden burst of red light nearly blinded me. When my eyes adjusted, however, I saw what I don't know what else to call other than spider pillows. All of them were varying in shapes and sizes. The only common trait among them were their legs and piercing red eyes. My yells were muffled when I saw them. However, from how far down we must have been. I doubt I would have been heard no matter how loudly I screamed. The nasty little things began scampering towards their mother. I thought I was done for as they were climbing onto me. I slipped my hand into my pockets to find something, anything with which I could use to escape. That was when my fingers grasped around my lighter that I had forgotten was in my pocket. Just one, side note. I happen to be something of a lighter collector. It's sad, but whenever I see one and I think it has a cool design, I purchase it, and I happened to while I was out getting detergent. It's weirdly ironic that my bad memory managed to end up working in my favour. I managed to get the lighter out of my pocket and flicked it on before I could get feasted upon. Hey, that rhymed. Anyway, the bed then let out an ear-piercing shriek, causing her young to retreat. I then felt the tendrils loosen some, and I seized the opportunity to rip them away from me and get out of bed. I then started dashing back towards the tunnel. Naturally, my supposed predators noticed I was attempting to escape and chased after me. Unfortunately, I couldn't run up the tunnel because of its narrowness. I had to try climbing up it. Considering that I was being chased by creatures related to the ones who were evolved to be expert climbers, my chances of escaping weren't looking that great. I happened to get lucky again, however. I was climbing with those little hellspawns and their mother not far behind me. My foot happened to touch a loose rock in the wall. I kicked it as hard as I could, freeing it and causing some larger rocks to come loose from the wall. They tumbled downward and onto my pursuers, knocking them back underneath their weight. Not only did I hear a thud when they hit the bottom, I also heard the loud, undescribable crunching noise, which told me they weren't unscathed by all the rocks. Once I finally escaped the tunnel, it was a simple matter of running forward until I made it out of the forest. Coincidentally, one of my neighbours happened to be outside at the time, taking out the trash. I must have looked insane to him. I was covered in dirt, scratches and sweat. Not to mention that I wasn't wearing any shoes at the time. I guess my body had reached its limit because I collapsed in my yard. I woke up sometime in the hospital. Apparently, my aforementioned neighbour called me an ambulance. Fortunately, aside from the slight cold, I didn't contract anything too serious. Trying to explain what had happened to the staff there was a mess. I don't even want to begin to get into. Now, the most believable explanation I could come up with was that some kind of animal broke into my home and dragged me into the forest. When they asked me what it looked like, I replied that it was too dark for me to see it. For obvious reasons, my incident put everyone in my neighbourhood on edge. A zoologist was sent out, who I showed the hole to. A team had to be brought out to carefully remove the rocks at the bottom. What they found after getting them out of the way were the bloody and crushed bodies of the creatures. Nobody had any idea what to make of them. Usually such a discovery would be reported nationally. However, some government people were sent out to hush up everyone and have the hole sealed over. Between you and me, I say good riddance. The dead bodies of those things can rot in that cave for all I care. I've spent the last few weeks searching for a new mattress, and what do I have to show for it? An expensive medical bill, and what will probably be used by my stingy landlord as an excuse to deny me my deposit back when I finally move out of this place. I think I should have just bitten the bullet and gone with a more expensive mattress. Instead, I went with one that caused me a waking nightmare. Honestly, I don't know if any of those things were found alive or somehow managed to escape that cave. I really hope they weren't. I'm also hoping more of them aren't out there or nothing similar to them is out there. It's been back to the couch for me ever since that incident. Being a pretty tall guy, sleeping on it isn't exactly comfortable, So I've posted this here in hopes someone can recommend me where I can get a good, affordable mattress. Hell, I'll even take a futon at this point. As long as it doesn't turn out to be some sort of spider thing that tries to eat me, I'll be happy with it. Hopefully, soon, I'll be able to get my good night's sleep again, and I won't wake up with my neck sore.